Got that? The announcement. This meeting is being recorded. So
I heard that.
Yeah, so Julie thought then that she would listen to it and hear all of our wonderful comments.
Okay.
So that's great. So where are we? We are on the sea and fish stories. Are we on the sea or we did the sea?
We did the sea.
I didn't read it so fast.
This is
I did the next one.
story.
Where
I
are we?
did the letter and
Oh, yes, the
We're
letter.
at the end.
We're at the end. The letter and church story.
All right, I'm gonna do a new one. I haven't kept it. Sorry. Bye-bye.
You can stay.
Keep us in your thoughts.
You can stay with us and listen to the conversation.
Well, I could listen. Yeah, I could listen.
But it's great.
I just haven't kept up.
Okay, so the letter.
Well, it's too bad Annetta's not here today. Especially after her comments at Bible study on Friday about Mark dissing the women, making it the women's fault today instead of Aaron.
Oh, yeah.
Like he had no will to do whatever he
Oh,
wanted to
brother.
do.
What a story. So
God
this,
forbid that he stay.
choice. So this story is all about the women. And the message or letter that Paul has sent to these women. And I think that Rachel's her fictional exposition on this is really helpful as we try and listen to Paul's letters. It helps, I think it helps us see that Paul's letters are particular, and Rachel goes into that in her chapter, that Paul's letters are particular. That's really, really important. They're not universal. And that makes a difference to how we understand it.
So in other words, his letter to the Colossians are totally different than the letters to Philippians.
Because the Colossians are different from the Philippians. He writes particularly to that community of faith. So people get a lot of bent out of shape because he says something different here and different here and different here. Paul never intended for all of that to be the same, right? Particular community of faith. And now we have this collection of letters and somehow think that Paul should have had consistency in all of them.
Paul, in his defense, which God
Share
knows
it.
I hardly ever do, probably never intended for them to be passed down through the millennia and taken as gospel.
Right. Those things are so important to remember as we read Paul's letters. That doesn't mean that we can't learn and grow from what's there. But I do think it means that we can't say that Paul says this thing all the time.
Why do you think that the holier hierarchy or whoever in whatever century put these letters in a
It's like-
canon?
I think that's a really good question.
I'm like, come on, guys.
I think the reason is because they are the earliest writings.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Because
We
there's
have.
stuff like you shouldn't braid your hair.
Right.
There's stuff like women shouldn't talk in
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
And that would be specific, like you're making sense. That was specific to the wacky women who might have been in words at Corinth, screaming out loud and stuff.
Right.
I mean, and
Right.
braiding your hair. Maybe
Yeah.
they wore crazy beehives or something. Who
And
knows?
we have no clue
Yeah.
the context.
Mm-hmm.
So
Of the letter.
yeah, we have no clue what that context really is about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Um, So no, I just don't think we can do that. So I think that question of why are Paul's letters in the canon, that I do believe is the answer to the question.
Yeah.
Is that Paul's writings are the earliest writings. They come before Mark.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yes, they do. They are early.
There's some other crazy
Where I wrote
gospels
down
out there.
when they all wrote, but I don't remember
Right.
where I wrote.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good way to think about
Yeah,
it. 'Cause I
so-
always wondered.
So,
Crazy
so
stuff.
from, who knows what the criteria, there were none. They're just, is this in or is this out, I think.
Yeah.
But that would make sense that these are the earliest letters. These are the closest we can get to Jesus. So let's put them in here, right? And then we get Mark, who's writing from another source. And then we get, John, which is way, way, way late.
Yeah, he was 90 to 100.
90 to 100. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So hear that difference too. Paul is around writing in around 50. John's closer to 100. I mean, so think about our distance now from World War II, right? We just
Yeah.
celebrated 50 years, didn't we?
Yeah.
So think
70
about
years.
how the story gets told differently. So we have letters, right?
Right.
From people and in all sorts of places. And those letters are written specifically to loved ones, right? They're written specifically to the wives and girlfriends left at home. They're written to very specific context. And yet in them, we learn so much about what a soldier's life is like.
Mhm.
And, today, this many years later, we still have histories written about World War II. But they're different in nature now, right? They're not the compilations or PBS is always telling us great stories, but they have distance. They have all of these years of Holocaust deniers.
I know.
They've got all of these years of what's happened in between.
You're freezing.
So, I think that's the difference between Paul's letters and John.
And individual people take the letters differently too. It may be like I may think one thing, like for instance, the letters to the Philippians, I identify with a lot, and I just love them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I like them all, but for some reason, that specific one just really speaks to me.
Yeah.
Excuse me, are you using the speaker?
Yes.
Is everybody using the speaker?
Yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can't you hear us? That's not.
No,
Oh.
I can hear Reverend Kathy.
We'll talk later.
Because I'm so loud and obnoxious. So this letter that Rachel imagines, or this story that Rachel imagines, in which a letter has been sent and read, is fascinating, and it tells us about this particular community and the struggles within it. And they're looking forward to reading Paul's letter as maybe a means to solve some of their issues, right? And then they talk about it, mull it over.
I like on page 193, the end of the first full paragraph. Do we risk our necks over differences with the government regarding class, commerce, worship, and household? Or do we let things like that go? No one can seem to agree.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Don't
more
know.
they change, the more they stay the same.
Right, right.
Yep. Excuse me, I have to leave, ladies. Reverend Kathy, I know you'll share that it's kind of a rough weekend for us in many ways, because I did send you a message.
Will
You
do.
didn't get it yet?
Yes, I got it.
My dear, dear life friend, on top of everything else, my dear, dear lifelong friend died yesterday, so
Yeah.
anyway, I have, but I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hmm.
It's also that particular is also interesting when, I mean, not just in the context of these women in Laodicea, but you think about Rachel herself
Uh-huh.
and how she suffered for the gospel.
Yeah.
For what she believed the gospel to be. I mean,
never-
she was
yeah.
really cruelly treated
Really.
by the evangelical church,
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the point that when she got so sick and her friends were asking for prayers for her, some of the pastors from the church said, well, of course we'll pray for her and we hope she'll get well, but she really brought this on herself.
Oh, good Lord.
She's been
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I'm Facebook friends with a young woman who was the Lutheran Episcopal campus minister at the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. And Rick was on the board when she was minister. And her story is so closely parallel to Rachel's story. It's just amazing that being raised in a church where it is preached often that women have no power at all
and
in that,
may not teach.
and may not teach, which is different than, and maybe that's why I am the way that I am, which is a different message than the Catholics. For whatever we may agree or disagree, that message was never women have no power. That it was clear the kind of things women could do. And one of those things was teaching, right? That's what women do, is teach. And I look back on my CCD teachers with love and respect. I had wonderful, wonderful faith formation as a little Catholic girl.
Was it nuns?
No, because I never went to Catholic school. So I was saved from all that. So I guess.
You went to Catholic school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'll put that.
Pre-Vatican
Yeah.
too also.
Yeah. But I was never told I couldn't. You know, when I decided that I wanted to start a young adult group, what I heard was, yeah, let's do that. So, you know, I was never told.
But you were post-Vatican II.
I was post, but I am,
Pre-Vatican was a very different
different,
story.
and I was
Let me tell
also raised in a very progressive church.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
you seem- yeah,
indeed.
very-
My
Very,
friends were not, and they were pre-Vatican too.
Yeah,
very
it was
progressive
Pretty
church.
bad.
Yeah. Is there anything more we want to say about the letter?
I wish I remembered it better.
This wonderful letter
Letter.
that Rachel
I read it.
wrote for us to have a glimpse of the possibility of what Paul might have written.
I think it gave a glimpse how everyone was just kind of confused because I don't think they know, you know, do we follow the government? Do we not follow the government? Can we do this? But if we can't do this, can we do that? And I think they're still just struggling to find their way.
I think you're right there, and I think that's. I mean, I think that glimpse is of this struggle. I mean, this very early struggle. Paul's writing in about 50 and 50 to 60-ish. And there's no church. There's no liturgy. There's no
hierarchy.
There's none of
No.
what we imagine is in existence.
And are we still supposed to do Jewish stuff and then add this new stuff in, or totally abandon that? And what about Rome and
Then we do
The
get
big-
Acts of the Apostles, which, you know, shows us that I think this wonderful story of Peter and Paul and the movement from the mission to the Jews to the mission to the Gentiles. So Acts is late too. So all of Paul's writings are prior to the Acts of the Apostles.
I mean, no one will believe I'm saying this. Paul was really, in many respects, very far ahead of his time. Because in Acts, where Peter kind of gets smacked upside of the head,
Yes,
oh, yeah, everybody's welcome.
everybody's welcome. It took Peter a lot.
All that fighting with Paul.
With
that
Paul,
he-
right. And then finally he says, oh yeah, maybe that's what this is about. Yeah. Maybe Paul was right. Okay, so church stories then. I just really do love her sort of, I guess, I don't know, historical analysis or
Yeah, yeah.
so we do see that on page 200. That first full paragraph, of course, the authors did not consider their letters scripture at the time, nor did the recipients. The concerns of the world's first Christians were far more practical. How to get financial support for ministry, how to respond to arguments that Gentile converts needed to be circumcised, what to do with the influx of poor widows joining the church, which Roman laws to observe and which to challenge, and most important, how to foster theological and communal unity between Jews and Gentiles, rich and poor, men and women, new converts and mature Christians. And that's where we get that lovely language of Paul's. That is the both and.
But no, Jews were separated between each other for those who believed in Jesus and those who were still looking for a Messiah, weren't there?
Separation is a word that I think implies intention, and I don't think that's the case. What we hear is the stories of Jews who began to follow Jesus being thrown out of the synagogue. So that wasn't a choice. That wasn't a choice by those who were following Jesus. But that, I mean, that's the big, one of the crises that we read in John's gospel is that new life in Jesus is like, being thrown out of the synagogue is like dying. New life in Jesus is resurrection.
You talked about that in your sermon.
So there's yeah. So Peter and Paul had this ongoing conversation about what do Gentile believers in Jesus need to do? Do they need, because the whole movement came out of the synagogue. The whole movement came out of that. And those people were already circumcised. So if you're going to be a follower of Jesus and you're a Gentile, because the mission is now open to everybody, do you have to sort of go back and be a Jew first? And that's where they butt heads, because for a long time Peter says, yes, you do. And Paul's saying, no. And then Peter, we just read that. Or did we just read that?
In morning prayer
Okay.
from that.
Yeah, where Peter finally says, okay, I get it now. Let's move on.
Do we have any examples of how Gentile Christians like worshiped or prayed together? That'd be kind of
That's a
fun.
good question. So we have a document. I have always pronounced it the Didache. It can be pronounced Didache.
Mhm. Didache. I
Yes.
never.
Yes.
Yeah. with the dash.
Which is a document that shows us early, as early as I think is extant, worship and what it looks like for a person to be to be part of the church. And that document we can get a hold of.
Wow.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
So would there be, the Christian Jews would be in the temple maybe, and then add some extra prayers, and the Gentiles would be in their homes or whatever with their own sort of little worship times, mostly in their homes, I think.
Boy, unless the entire congregation had determined they would become Jesus followers,
Regardless.
they
Of
would
their
not
faith.
have been welcome
No,
in the temple.
no, that's right. Right. So they would have been forced, and they talk about house churches all the time.
Yeah,
Interesting. To see where our own liturgy comes from, I think is so intriguing.
Yeah, we can do that. That's a fun thing to do.
I could bring my sitter, which I still have.
Oh, yeah.
You could bring what?
My sitter, my prayer,
Yeah.
my little
Yeah.
prayer book.
Awesome. It's awesome, truly, to see where we come from.
Well,
So
and
it's right.
I
It's
mean,
right in here.
think somebody saved these things. God willing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think one of the fascinating things is what what is extant and what is not. What does it look like to see the earliest manuscripts?
Yeah.
And what we have are pieces. We don't have anything, but the Didache is pretty complete.
Well, looking at Colossians too, isn't that where that beautiful prayer of the humility and the people?
No, that's Philippians, the Christ prayer.
No, it's a different one.
Oh.
Although he was God, he took the form of a human and did not cling to his godliness, but took
Whoa,
on
be
the form
careful.
of a servant, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it almost sounded like the first thing that Paul wanted to get across theologically was the divinity of God and his humanity, the twofold pieces of Christ.
Who though he was in the
Yes.
form of God. That's Philippians 2:6.
But there's another one. It's called the Hymn to the Humility of Christ, and I think it's in Colossians also.
Okay.
Or Hebrews, I can't remember. But it's interesting to pull out theological pieces that have remained through the ages. Some good and some not so great.
Well, and where is it?
It's either Ephesians or
Here.
Colossians. I can't remember.
Ephesians may or may not be Paul.
It's a whole other book.
And Colossians.
I
don't know if
was
Colossians
reading
is
one
either.
Sunday at church, and it was Ephesians, and the practice there was always to say a letter from the Apostle Paul to the, and so I said it. But no, and then after church, Mark Waldo, who was the assistant there, said, "Oh, nice reading today." I said, "Thank you." I said, "I almost said a letter from someone, probably not Paul, to the Ephesians." And he was like, "Oh, thank God you didn't do that."
From somebody, some important guy.
But
Yeah.
here, on page 201, she's talking about somebody named Pastor Adam Hamilton. I don't know who he is, who says, when you read one of Paul's letters or any other New Testament letter, you are reading someone else's
I
mail.
love that.
Yes.
Oh,
Paul's instructions, this is just what you were saying, his theological reflections and his practical concerns were amazingly timeless, but they become most meaningful and we are least likely to misapply their teaching when we seek to understand why he may have written this or that to a given church.
yeah. And that's where so many of the icky things we argue about come from.
I
The
agree.
homosexuality
Right.
thing, the women thing. Jesus never was bothered with that
Right.
stuff.
Right.
The way you wear your hair, veiling your head.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. That's really a very cool insight.
So let's kind of imagine that, how this unfolded. So we have Jesus in about 30 to 33, who has called this posse that follows him around. That is all these smelly, stinky fishermen, a lawyer,
Some women.
well, and there's all the women who are part of that. I mean, we have to imagine the women because who's going to cook, right? So
How amazing when Jesus does.
yeah, when he cooks on the beach.
Yeah.
So we have the posse following him around, which includes all sorts and kinds of people, children as well. There's surely children among that. And he is doing his best to just get all of this out to them. Just, almost like depositing all of this in their heads before he goes. So, because he's got 3 years to do this.
Did he know such a short time?
That's a question that I will ask him when I get there. I have a list. So he's working hard to get all of this information into the disciples. And the posse, everybody that's following him. Okay. So that is all spoken. All of that is spoken. Don't even ever begin to imagine that any of that is written down. It's all spoken. And then we have Paul, who says, you know what? I heard about a guy. He was the king persecutor of anybody who was following Jesus. This is Paul. So then he has this momentous experience that changes him. He does not become a Jew, right? He's still a Jew, but he's had this encounter with Jesus. And so he starts telling that story about his encounter with Jesus. And he starts gathering a few people around him, and they go to all of these places to spread the good news of Jesus Christ. What is that good news? And that's what we get in the letters that he writes back to these fledgling groups of people all over the place. I don't even think Paul he doesn't have any sort of concise description or understanding of the good news, right?
Because he's still figuring it out.
He's
himself.
still figuring it out. Okay. Then
And he's Paul, and you can't divorce that from what he says.
right.
Well, it's hilarious. On page 201, this pastor, whatever, says to her, to Rachel, I'm guessing, that in the book of Titus, which is in the Bible, right?
Mhm.
Paul says, one of Crete's own prophets has said, Cretans are always liars, evil brutes, and lazy gluttons. This saying is true. It's hilarious. Those poor Cretans. No wonder they call you a Cretan when you.
they still
They do that word. I never knew what that
That's where
meant.
it comes
He's a
from.
Cretan.
Yeah.
It also meant like a severely retarded child. But I'm
Oh
like,
my
oh
gosh.
my gosh, it's terrible.
Yeah. Well,
But I guess we got to take it with a grain of salt because Paul wasn't God.
and I don't know that Paul wrote Titus.
Oh, really?
I don't think Paul ever
That's
did.
evil. Yeah.
So then we get Mark. What are the first words in Mark?
Oh,
What are the first words in Mark? This.
Check that out.
Genealogy.
No, not Mark.
Not the genealogy.
Not Mark. Mark is amazing in this.
I think of
Amazing.
him kind of like a newspaper reporter.
Mark? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're,
Cut and dry.
yeah.
You only have so many words.
And, yeah. Sharon's looking up Mark.
In the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, as it is written in the prophet Isaiah, see, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way, the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight.
Is that very first word there in, or is it the? See, so read that one more time.
The beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God.
That's it. This is the good news
Here you go. This is all you're gonna need.
This is all you need. This is it. This is it. And what do we get? Heads getting lopped off, hands getting lopped off, eyes getting poked out. Whoa, what a good
Were the
news.
babies being killed in Mark?
No, I don't think that. We just get that in the
So
Psalms.
awful. No, the babies being killed by
Oh,
Herod.
the
You know, the
slaughter.
holy innocent.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. So then we get Mark, and Mark we know is informed by this other source
Happy day.
that we have not really, you know, the cue.
No, there is no baby Jesus in my.
Then there is no baby Jesus in Mark.
Starts right
Yeah.
off with John.
Let's get running here. He gets baptized, he goes to the wilderness, and there we are.
I've got a deadline.
That's about it. And then we get Luke, who kind of makes some stuff up. This must be how it goes, Luke thinks. If this Jesus is the Son of God, then we've got to have some things that show us this Jesus is the Son of God. So let's have this prologue that shows us the kingship of Jesus and the nativity. You know, that's the only place that shows up. Matthew has to give credence to Jesus by the genealogy. This is how Jesus has authority. Luke says Jesus' authority comes from this, that the signs were in the sky, that there are wonders, that the Magi come to visit him, that all of that sort of stuff. Matthew says Jesus' authority comes from all of these people that came before him, all in the line of David.
It's hilarious.
Fascinating
In
stuff.
The Chosen, Matthew has got a form of Asperger's. And he walks around with his little pad all the time, taking down Jesus's words. It's very cool.
A pad?
Well, some
no
sort of
pad.
little stylus with a piece of stone or something,
Okay.
but what a piece of
Yeah.
papyrus or
Papyrus or something.
But it's very cool, and he was very much into, according to The Chosen, details, which he does right with a great deal of.
Yeah, Matthew has details. Mark has no detail. Matthew has detail.
And Luke is telling you a story.
And Luke is
And
telling
he's
us.
the doctor, you know, he's going to be into those healings and the woman with the hemorrhage and the different, you know, varieties of illnesses. And John.
And that's
is just
in dispute as well.
really
Wow.
that it was.
Luke as a physician.
Oh, really?
Luke,
I remember reading that
Yeah.
someplace recently.
yeah,
Well, and who was a physician in those days?
Right,
You know,
so
herbalists
Luke,
and
Luke as an
doctors,
herbalist, Luke as a
nurse type,
healer,
yeah.
Luke as a,
Just a
all
person
of those
interested in
things.
bodies
Yeah.
and weird stuff. Maybe.
yeah. Yeah, so that, you know, that's what we have in front of us. And, yeah, Rachel writes, so lovely about it. You know, page 205, she gets it right to the point. And yet many of the same Christians who condemn all same-sex behavior as unnatural, according to the Bible, don't apply the same standards to
Right.
head coverings or hair lengths among the men and women in their own congregations.
Yes.
Most understand Paul's language to the Corinthians to describe cultural
Mhm.
customs based on ancient views of gender roles, not universal truths.
Amen.
And it's that picking and choosing
Yes.
that just makes me crazy.
I have never heard anyone preach against braided hair ever, but it's in the Bible. It's
Yes.
like, why aren't we flipping out about that?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but
But
you hear
homosexual-
people preach all the time
Oh, yeah.
about women's roles.
Right. Don't speak in church. No teaching. I kind of snottily have always thought, well, then how come we get stuck with the junior high boys? At what age do we stop teaching men? Oh, as long as it's convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings me to a bit of a conversation about how then do we understand we have all of these texts in what we call the canon, that at some point men decided that these are the authoritative books, the authoritative stories, the authoritative writings, whatever word we want to use to describe those. Do we, I mean, if we look back to the rabbis, we fully understand that every single word is not weighted equally, that every single story is not weighted equally. And so we receive this canon, and do we weight every single one of these equally?
Well, clearly, evangelicals who would tell you with their mouths that this is the indisputable word of God, inerrant, every last word of it. But my daughter has braided hair.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So I think the way to go, and when people ask me the question, I think the way to go is to be honest with your biases. So I am honest with my bias. I think that that what Jesus says about following, and the stories around what does it look like then to follow Jesus, my bias is that they have priority over everything else.
Wait, say that again, Kat, please.
So the stories about Jesus and how and Jesus teaching and Jesus talking about what does it look like to follow in the way, take priority over the rest of what we have in the New Testament.
What about the healing?
And the healings, yes.
You mean the Gospels take precedence? That's what I think.
I don't know if I'd go so far as to say the Gospels, because I don't think we're supposed to be chopping off arms and poking out eyes.
Right.
Right.
But I mean, I think we look at scripture, tradition, and what's the other thing? Reason.
Yeah.
But you can get in trouble with that too.
Mm-hmm. You can. Yeah. So
I
I
guess we look at the work of the Holy Spirit within us
yeah.
to
Yeah.
say that's working or it's not. I mean, you can't cross out Holy Spirit.
I always like what the presiding bishop says. That if
Speak loud so Paula can hear you.
I like what the presiding bishop says. If it's not about love, it's not about God.
Yeah.
And I think, there's plenty in here.
Yeah.
Not about love.
Yeah.
And goodness knows in this part of it, there's plenty that's not about love.
But I have to
But-
say that sometimes I get upset about that. Not so much that it's just about love, but I think I was just reading a book about the holiness and the awesomeness that God is. And so there's a certain elevation of our own prayer life or worship that needs to be reverent or holy or something. I don't know where I'm at with that, but just love alone to me is not what we're called. We're called to worship in holiness or something. I've just been wondering, like, it's not just about love, it's about worshiping. It's about worshiping a God who is holy and righteous.
Except that, I think you're right, but I also think that, again, when the pendulum swings to this place where worship is beautiful and reverent and lovely, if those people are not sent out into the world to love one another and to
Right.
love their neighbor, then that worship is worthless.
Right. It's a both and thing to me. I think that's the issue. And sometimes I think we've gotten so into the happy, clappy Jesus love thing that we forget the reverent, holy God that we serve. He's not mean.
No, but he's dirty and messy.
Well, he is that too, but he's also holy and deserving our worship.
Right.
But that worship transfers into love.
Right.
And it's that burning fire that propels us
Mhm.
outward. And
Yeah.
I think that's the combo that sometimes I fear, again, with the pendulum swinging from the these and the thous and the holy, holy, and don't talk in church to, clappy, happy. It's got to be somewhere in the middle. And
I see it as love is at its best when it's given away
yeah,
and shared, even to ourselves.
But I think that begs the question also, are we in relationship with God when we are not attending a church? Is that a possibility?
Do you mean attending physically, or
Yes. I mean, attending physically.
you mean that doesn't count?
oh,
I am wondering about all that. I mean, I would suggest that does count. But there have been many over the last 16 months that have said it doesn't count. You can't, I mean, I just think, I think that we.
Fundamentalists, and I'm lumping all fundamentalist Christians in with that, of whom I think Roman Catholics
Can be a
are
part.
well represented. I think they don't believe that counts. They don't see that as any kind of a relationship. I personally would really argue with that. I mean, if you're on any of the social media, but particularly Twitter, you see a lot of, oh, I come to your church now. I've really liked watching your
Yeah, your thing that
yeah,
you do.
yeah, your Facebook or your YouTube or whatever. And I never went to church before, and I live God knows where. But what your congregation is doing speaks to me. How is that not
But when you're,
that person sitting
Right.
Right.
watching TV in the morning on Sunday?
but if you're watching TV, sitting in a parking lot, main live streaming, YouTubing, you're getting your tank filled, but you're not participating in any kind of community.
That's
Yeah.
a good point.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, that one Anglican priest that I follow who's gay and enormously funny, which is why I started following him. I'll send it to you. He has made a point of being in contact with these people who have logged on
Yeah.
from where people
Yeah.
from Europe are
Yeah, he's got quite a
attending
following.
his church.
What's his
And
name?
Daniel Brereton,
Mm.
and includes them in the service.
Mm.
He contacts them, asks them if they'd like to be
Well,
readers.
that's
or
cool, yeah.
If they'd like to pass the peace,
Mhm.
and they do it very unconventionally.
Mm.
I don't know what his bishop thinks of it, but he's making people part of their
Yeah.
community.
Yeah. Wow.
Invites them to coffee hour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have
Yeah.
coffee hour like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I remember from Curcio, they always said, there's no such thing as a solo Christian.
I am all over that.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. I think that Zooming, it all depends on your heart,
But
don't you think?
so this is Kathy, who loves post-apocalyptic literature speaking. What if this place is bombed and there is no possibility to gather together? Does my solo, and all of my books are destroyed, my prayer book and my Bible has been taken away from me.
We should have memorized them.
Right. Does my praying the Psalms all by myself not qualify as worship? Right? I think that that's what the cloud of witnesses is about. That we pray with the cloud of witnesses from all times and all places. And we are not a solo Christian. I might be alone,
Right. I agree.
but I am not solo.
And it's your heart. If you're just doing it to earn points with God, I'm like, what? But if you're doing it, I mean, as a therapist, we have struggled with Zooming therapy. I hate it. But you've got people who cannot get out of bed. They can't come to church. They're in some remote place. Are they not Christians? They're Christians. I don't know. I give up on
Job
that one.
was alone.
Yeah, and there are
And he
people in this
praised
world,
God.
they're called to be hermits. They're all by themselves praying. I'm like, well, good luck to you, buddy. But, you know, they're in some sort of community somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I give up. I mean, I just give up on that question. I just think you do what God called you to do.
Right.
And we have social media. We may as well use it.
Right.
And
So,
if it's a way to bring people to God,
amen.
we'd be stupid not
Not
to try.
Exactly.
Right.
I just say they're not, I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But I think just use whatever's out there.
So,
So yeah, your question is, can you be alone if this gets bombed? Yes. I mean, I found that in COVID.
right.
Man, Jesus was alive and well.
I feel like I've gotten closer to him, to God,
Yeah.
in being alone.
Me
My
too.
prayer life has certainly expanded. since
Yeah.
then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't want it to change.
Well, that talks about the need for silence, the need for meeting Christ alone in silence, and then coming to church and having a good time, or worshiping that fabulous Jesus that we met that week.
Music
Yeah.
is so important in church for me.
So the study of Revelation, that book, its premise is that the book of Revelation is a book of resistance and a book of worship. It's an amazing premise. That's why it's an amazing book.
Speaking of which, are we gonna do Bible study through the summer?
What do you think? I'm going, next week I'm gonna be gone. Not this Friday, but the Friday after that. I think we will take a hiatus on this.
Yeah, too many people are gone
Yeah,
on the weekends.
I think once we finish this today, we will take a hiatus on this. And then we can have kind of step back and figure out what. And I also think that, and I've said this out loud, haven't I? Maybe I've just said it in my own head, that we will make an effort so that when we return, our in-between time will be coffee hour. And I am doing children's storytelling after the service on Sundays.
So the in-between time will be like it used to be.
Yes, Yes, and we will invite people to come, because that's all I've heard is we should just have one service because we don't get to know each other. And the truth of the matter is during church is not the time we get to know each other. We don't sit around and chat and ask questions. We don't do that during church. That happens during coffee hour.
And what time will coffee hour be?
So be between the services,
Like it used to be from 9 to 9:45.
Okay.
whatever that is. So that will
9-ish.
mean that people who come at 10 will have to come earlier. And every single time I hear that from people. Well, I don't want to get there that early. I will say, well, you told me that you don't get a chance to get to know the people who come to the 8 o'clock service.
And that's been,
This is it.
that, once I realized that that was one of the major benefits of coming at 9 o'clock, because we all know I consider 9 o'clock to be quite early in the morning.
Me too.
That's what made me get up and come.
And I will say the same thing to the people who come at 8. But how are we supposed to get to know the people at 10? Stay. And I'm also, Paula, you can help me with this. You know, one of the things I learned because I've been on,
I'm here. I'm sorry, you
we're here.
froze there.
One of the things I learned on the couple of tour bus trips that I've gone on is that you know, you usually go with a partner, so you're sitting in the tour bus with your partner, and every day when you get on the tour bus, you move 2 seats.
Oh, sure.
So that you then have a different group of people that are to your. I'm sitting here with my partner. The people I can talk with are the people like here, and the people sometimes behind me, sometimes in front of me, depending on how high those seats are. But every day you get on that bus and you move, and that's just accepted protocol.
And it's very much resisted place.
It is resisted. But if you don't do that, there's no possible way
Yeah.
that you have any sort of relationship going on. So we're going to have to figure out a system by which people cannot sit and talk to the same people they talk to every single Sunday. We're going to have to work on that one, Paula.
And I think early in September, we should have a Christian cafe, which I am more than happy to head up. And I think people do tend to come to those, and then we can really talk up this idea of in between the services. And
People come in from 1 to 8.
Oh, yeah.
And then they don't know what it's about. Like, give me a 4.
Yeah, what's this? I mean, I think it takes a system.
Yeah, take a
Otherwise,
card.
it's never going to happen.
And then and then they don't know what the card's about, or the color, or the bunny,
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
animal, or whatever. And then all the bunnies sit together, and all the
And then
Yes,
what we
yeah.
also do is we
That would
have
be
some
Yeah.
prompts. We have some prompts at the tables.
Oh, I have tons of prompts.
So that,
I have
yes,
those crazy cards.
bring those, and that
They're
we,
so
and
good.
so
Oh my
we do
God, I
that
hate
at the
those.
Oh,
table.
my
So that
God.
people at least have a beginning point of some sort of exchange.
What's your favorite animal and why?
It can be very,
Sorry.
I think it can be silly and simple.
10 after 9 sounds good.
Yeah, people start coming late and just filling the chairs with their friends.
Yeah,
Let's go, come late.
we'll have to be very subtle.
And
about
we'll
the
have to
whole
make
thing.
fun of the people who are late and try to get rid, not follow the rules. Uh-huh. We have our ways.
Oh, yeah.
I taught people.
Well,
that
it's,
for a while.
the people who sit by themselves
Oh, yeah.
thinking of Ed Schultz,
Yeah,
who, I mean, there's almost always a place at just about every table. And Ed will sit alone.
That's okay. Well, I mean, we don't want to force it too much.
No, I don't want to force it, but I also, you know,
Sometimes
I
I
am
would just go sit with them.
I'm a little tired of hearing from people who say, let's get to know each other. And then they don't.
Well, I think if you, it's not going to necessarily be an easy structure for everybody.
No, it's not.
You know,
I thought that.
I don't really want to be up and talking to people at 9
No.
o'clock in the morning, but it's important to me to meet these other people. I mean, I didn't know any of the Whitfords at all, not at all
What was-
until I started coming
Mhm.
to that.
Could we start off with a song or something?
Oh my God, this is going from bad to worse.
How about the happy and you know what song?
I feel like I'm in Story House. You wouldn't even need to come every week because I know how to play that one.
Just throw it out. It's brainstorming time. It's not reality time.
And you don't know how hard it is for me to give up teaching.
You mean we're not gonna have,
That people don't want it. They want to be able to talk to each other.
Wait.
well, I'm not getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning just to talk to
you.
people. Yeah,
Email you at 4 a.m. What the heck?
Maybe,
Exactly.
maybe I can figure out
What's a good sort of like
a
way
kernel sort of thing of.
Wait. You are saying, I'm hearing you say that people want to get together at 9 o'clock, mix up chairs and talk to each other
That's
without a focus? Like without you saying today's gospel or whatever? What?
Nope, they want social time to visit with their friends from church.
I'm not coming.
No, I'm sleeping in. I'll chat with myself. Thank you.
Well, we'll continue to have Bible study on Fridays. and
Yeah,
maybe
Bible
teach
study,
them
and
there.
I would like to also have, I would like to have a book group.
I do too. To me, that has.
So, because that's
such a
really
useful
what
thing.
this
This
has
is
been.
really
Yes.
what this has been.
Yes.
And we can do that anytime we want.
Okay, I'm for it.
So,
Yeah, because we could do, except for we
I like
have
to
to
talk
make
about
your,
books that I've read.
not your.
Wait, that's what? I'm still on this 9 o'clock sit and talk to people thing?
Well, at least I won't have to sing with you now.
Wait a minute, that's terrible. We need Christian formation.
Yeah, we do.
The dearth of information is terrible. I'm so sorry.
And see,
What?
I don't, I'm not speaking for them, I'm guessing. But I don't see Ralph and Annetta coming to drink coffee.
Just to drink coffee.
No, I'm
Good
not.
point, good point.
I don't know. We'll think some more about it, but I mean,
Well, how about if it started out for a couple weeks as visiting and we haven't seen each other in a long time. So take a couple weeks and let people see who comes, see who doesn't come, and then see how it shakes out. There may be people who say, yeah, I think we should do something structured during this time. And maybe they'll be like, I'm not coming if it is, and you guys are, I'm not coming if it's not. So it's,
Well, I'd probably show up a little early, but I'm not coming at 9 o'clock to drink coffee for an hour.
No.
well, no one said you had to show up at 9.
it's that.
No one said you had to stay till 10.
I mean,
Repercussions if you're late.
I guess our critical mass is like 9:15 to 9:45. That's been our sort of our.
Well, and I had a question too, as I thought about it. It's like, I remember last year when we had Sunday school, there was a crowd, not a crowd, but there were about 6 or 7 regulars waiting for their children during Sunday school,
Mhm.
which I'm not sure where we're at this year, but I thought of that as an interesting time for a small group Bible study, or
Sure.
some sort of little thingy. And Many times, nobody in the junior high showed up, so I was part of that gang, sort of
Mhm.
hanging out, but
But I think a lot of the people in that gang are the, we want coffee hour.
Yeah,
here.
they're the ones that just want to sit around and chat.
well, couldn't we?
And I wonder how it will change the dynamic if there is not choir practice during that time.
Yeah.
Because that will be a lot of people that would be free that normally weren't.
So that's what we're trying to
Wow.
arrange. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were gonna have 9 o'clock, like a formation time
Yeah,
for
so
all
did
of
I.
us.
Well,
Oh, Kathy,
what
that's
I've
just
heard from
disgraceful.
people is that they want to,
Well, what about those with formation time?
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, is it time for Ellery already?
No, it's.
No,
quarter-
she's at 2 o'clock.
Why is she trying to get in? What time is it?
That's upsetting.
1:45.
We don't want to grow. We don't want to
Did
change.
she get that mixed up from 12:45?
Something else.
What time is she?
I thought it was 2 o'clock, but maybe she still thinks it's 12:45.
Did I do something wrong?
I don't know.
Well, we could all.
I mean,
Who's Ellery?
Polly's granddaughter.
My granddaughter.
and I think the only,
She's applying for a,
I need to get my
Okay.
schedule off because now I'm confused.
I thought you said 2.
I don't have it on here.
Hang on, I'm gonna find it, but my phone
I
is
saw
so
that other
slow.
day going, you keep the book. I have to go let my dog out.
Yeah, I told my dog I'd be only gone an hour, but he doesn't have a watch, doesn't tell time yet. Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Lovely.
We'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, we'll keep working on that.
Goodbye, Pat.
singing thing.
Take care. See you Friday.
Sounds good.
Okay.
You know, that conversation is always a hard one, you know, because we're not gonna, I can't please everyone. But it also, it's that reaction to, you know, we should have one service. And you know, when I hear that from people, you know, I wonder what they think we're gonna do during church.
Yeah, right. Oh, I just don't think you can get into that, Kat.
Okay, Ellery is at 2 and Jack is at about 2:15 and Jackie is at 2:45. I think, yeah.
So I think she missed it. Did I ever say 12:45?
I
wonder
don't think so.
I wonder if there was something.
I can't find one where you said 12:45.
But can you acknowledge her and tell her that?
Text her here.
Did you get a new phone?
Yeah.
I have to get a new phone because they're not supporting this anymore. It's so old.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
and
so old.
because Sprint was taken over by T-Mobile.
I just lose track with all that stuff. And I hope I'm getting a cheap deal, but I never know.
Well, we are not getting a deal, so it'd be nice if we could find a cheaper deal.
Just ridiculous.
But I don't know what I want. I mean, I
Like
would have
what kind
gotten,
Things.
So you have her at 2? At 2.
2.
Okay. Okay. I just texted her. We'll see what she says.
okay.
Yeah, not delivered. Why are you not delivered?
Oh, I didn't know we still had a library here.
Oh, yeah, we just never put it together in
Need
a,
an outfit.
in a library
Why
way.
does that
I want to go
happen?
downstairs and you get 2.
Oh, I got it. I had to send it to her email address, I guess. Okay,
But I mean, we had plans that we were gonna
Yeah.
put group things in certain ways and we just never
okay, I did
got to that.
Yeah.
send it to her.
Do you think people,
Probably.
this business of Christian formation and not wanting those, flipping me out here.
Yeah,
Oh, I don't think it's not wanting to. But I,
What? No,
I just,
what? I mean, I get the socialization part, especially after COVID, and I think Paula's idea is great, but I, we are not gonna grow as a denomination, and I know we shouldn't care about that. We're not gonna grow as people personally if we are not constantly being challenged in our faith.
I don't know if she got that. She's still
Do you
waiting.
think that's true? I just think, how can we be so complacent
well, and to me,
about not growing?
the other thing is that I have found it to be such a wonderful way to get to know
To get to
other
know
people.
Through the discussion
Yes,
of Jesus being
absolutely.
replaced things.
I've learned so much about Annetta and even about Ann Wonky.
Or about Warren.
Yeah.
And their spirituality, and
Yeah.
that all helps me to grow.
Okay.
I just am horrified, because to me, sharing those spiritual things brings people to church.
I'm gonna have to bring Ellery in to tell her that she's early.
Okay, then we can maybe talk about.
So just for a second.
Sure. I just find it hard. Oh, people don't want to talk about things.
Do you want me to leave?
No.
Hi, Al.
Oh, that's what you want to talk about.
No. No,
I
not
thought you
yet.
had plans to talk about
Oh, no,
something
no,
else.
no.
I was like, well,
no, just Peter's gone for the day.
it's Ellery.
Yeah. Well, unmute Ellery.
Where does she live?
Green Bay.
Oh,
You're muted.
it's her heart. Heart one.
Yeah. Apparently she doesn't think she is. With the wind
There you are.
today.
Okay.
The what?
The wind.
Ellery, you're early.
Allergies.
Still can't hear her.
Too much, but I'm gonna try to just wear my glasses.
Well,
Oh,
Pull it up.
Does it go down?
yeah.
Ellery, you're
I
early.
should have asked, but I just put glasses on.
I don't have you till 2,
She's excited.
okay? Is that okay? I can't hear you. But we'll open this back up again just before 2. Okay? Thanks, great. We'll see you then.
Okay.
Oh, you're using my fancy dancy.
I love it. It's never worked before. 'Cause I remember once you stood on the
I had to
table.
stand up on the table to
Oh
do
my
it.
gosh.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not doing
I stood up on the table
I
and
remember.
tied that. And I kept it down here so it doesn't fly around.
Could this be a vestry discussion to not have formation between services? I think this is really important. What do you think? Is that like allowable or something we should be thinking about as a vestry? And what that says
Well, some
about-
of the,
No,
sorry.
go
to
ahead,
interrupt
please,
you.
please,
Some
please.
of the people who are, I won't want to say anti-formation, but in favor of just fellowship time are on the vestry.
So we should have a discussion.
Yeah, it's a good place for it.
Let me hear.
And
Then hear me.
then we can, I mean, I think Paula's suggestion of maybe having a couple of weeks
Yeah, that's great.
of
I get
time
it.
to kind of get back to know each other or get back together.
And maybe we could compromise and say one Sunday a month, we will have a full-fledged coffee hour. You know, and have a coffee hour, have 2 or 3 people go in together and do it up right. And then the other just have our donut holes and Christian information.
If we do start Christian Cafe up again,
Yeah,
that is one Sunday a
Yeah,
month.
we don't have formation.
Okay,
We don't have formation that day.
and we have food.
okay.
So we do have food and fun and that sort of thing. I mean, we can look at the calendar because more often than not, there's that sort of gets in the way of formation anyway.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the people I have heard say they miss coffee hour. And one of them is, she's never gonna get here
She'll
at
never
9.
get here at 9.
Who's that?
Yvonne.
Oh, and Rita is a big one.
Rita.
Well, but Rita was in choir first.
Right.
She never.
No, I don't know. I don't.
I know, that's
There's
what,
Yeah,
So
and
Rita-
Dan and Marilyn loved and missed coffee hour, but they're never gonna come at 9 o'clock either.
yeah.
And evidently Maryland is not good.
Oh, really?
Really?
There's some stuff going around about that, yeah.
We
I
gave,
think it was Ryan who had called Dan about something financial and asked him where they had been, and Dan said she wasn't able to go to church.
Well, I think she was still struggling with her knee.
Well, but then she got off the prayer list for that. So I don't know what's going on, so I'm gonna call her.
I
She
thought
has
they were
really
just
bad
still
depression.
staying away,
She looks-
that they just weren't
And
getting,
it affects her stomach.
getting,
yeah, it's
you
affecting
didn't
her
want to be
body.
around
Yeah.
people yet. So
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
we'll have a couple like that.
I'm gonna buzz off and I'll see you in an hour.
Okay, we'll see you in an hour.
Bye.
I just think maybe that would be